Luck is the lie broke people tell themselves. Every time something doesn't work out, you've got a story ready. The economy, your upbringing, bad timing, the algorithm. And every single one of those excuses is stealing your future. Here's what the research actually shows. People who believe external forces control their outcomes earn less money, achieve fewer goals, and report lower life satisfaction. Not because the universe is punishing them, because they've handed over the steering wheel of their own life. You're not average. You clicked on this video because something inside you refuses to accept that your results are determined by forces outside your control. The next few minutes will show you exactly why accountability isn't just a mindset. It's the most powerful wealth-building weapon you're not using, your move. Before we dive deeper, hit like and subscribe so you never miss our videos, and share this with someone who needs to see it. Let's talk about the invisible line that separates winners from everyone else. Psychologists call it locus of control. Internal locus means you believe your actions determine your outcomes. External locus means you believe luck, fate, or other people are running your life. Here's the brutal part nobody tells you. A 2025 study found that people with internal locus of control consistently outperform those with external locus across every measurable metric. Higher income, better health, stronger relationships, greater career advancement, more persistence when things get hard. And the gap isn't small, it's massive. But here's what most people miss. The research also shows your locus of control isn't fixed. It changes based on your experiences and the choices you make. Which means every time you blame something outside yourself, you're literally rewiring your brain to become less successful. Think about that. Every excuse you make is training your mind to expect failure. Ready for what's really keeping you stuck? This is where it gets uncomfortable, because you might recognize yourself in what I'm about to say. Victim mentality isn't just complaining. It's a complete operating system that runs silently in the background of your decision. And according to 2025 research, it shows up in 4 distinct patterns. First is externalizing blame. Something goes wrong, and immediately your brain starts scanning for who or what caused it. The market, your boss, your partner, anyone except the person in the mirror. Second is refusing responsibility. You reject ownership of consequences because accepting them would mean admitting you could have done something differently, and that's terrifying to the ego. Third is expecting rescue. You wait for someone else to solve your problems, a mentor, a break, an opportunity that falls from the sky. Meanwhile, your competition is creating their own luck. Fourth is chronic complaining without action. You identify problems constantly, but never implement solutions, because identifying problems feels productive without requiring the discomfort of change. Here's the research that should shake you. Social media makes this worse, much worse. Platforms reward victimhood with sympathy and attention. Every time you post about how hard things are and people respond with support, your brain gets a dopamine hit that reinforces the victim pattern. You're literally getting chemically rewarded for staying stuck, but there's something even more insidious happening in your brain. If you're serious about breaking free from the patterns that keep most people broke, you need more than motivation. You need a system. The VYBO Wealth Blueprint is the exact framework for rewiring your psychology around money and success. It's not theory, it's the tactical playbook that separates the 1% from everyone else. Check the link in the description to get your copy today. Now let's get back to what's actually sabotaging your success. Your brain is running a protection program that's destroying your growth. It's called self-serving bias. And it works like this. When something goes right, your brain automatically credits your skill, effort, and intelligence. When something goes wrong, your brain automatically blames external circumstances. Sounds harmless. It's not. This bias is so powerful that it shows up across every culture, every profession, and every age group. Athletes blame referees for losses, but credit their training for wins. Employees blame managers for failures, but claim promotions as personal achievements. Entrepreneurs blame market conditions for bankruptcy, but take full credit for success. The 2025 research is clear. This pattern doesn't just distort reality, it blocks learning. If you never own your failures, you never extract the lessons that prevent them from repeating. Every entrepreneur who went bankrupt blaming external factors is statistically more likely to fail again, because they protected their ego at the cost of their education. Meanwhile, founders who practice what researchers call extreme ownership learn from every setback and compound that knowledge into future success. Want to know the specific framework they use? We've covered the psychology of why most people stay stuck, the locus of control divide, the victim mentality trap, the self-serving bias that blocks growth. Now let's get tactical, because understanding the problem doesn't solve it. This next section is the exact framework for rewiring your brain around accountability. Pay close attention. This is where results happen. Navy SEAL commanders Jocko Willink and Leif Babin developed this framework in combat. It's been adopted by elite performers in business, sports, and entrepreneurship. And the principle is ruthlessly simple. The leader is responsible for everything. Not some things, everything, including things that seem completely outside their control. Here's how this works in practice. When a team fails, the extreme ownership approach doesn't ask who messed up. It asks what the leader could have done differently. Better communication, clearer instructions, different resource allocation, earlier intervention. This isn't about self-blame. It's about self-empowerment. When you own everything, you can change everything. When you blame external factors, you surrender your ability to improve the outcome. A 2025 analysis of high-performing organizations found that leaders who demonstrated extreme ownership created cultures of continuous improvement. Their teams communicated better, innovated faster, recovered from setbacks more quickly. And here's the counterintuitive part. When leaders own their mistakes publicly, team trust increases, not decreases, because vulnerability signals authenticity, and authenticity builds loyalty. But this framework requires something most people aren't willing to give. Extreme ownership demands checking your ego at the door, and that's exactly why most people won't do it. Admitting you're responsible for a failure feels like admitting you're incompetent, but that's a lie your ego tells to protect itself. The truth is the opposite. Taking responsibility for failure demonstrates strength. It shows you're secure enough to acknowledge imperfection. It proves you're focused on growth rather than image management. Weak people defend their ego at all costs. Strong people sacrifice their ego for results. 2025 leadership research confirms this. The most effective leaders operate with what researchers call confident humility. They're certain in their values and vision, but humble about their limitations and mistakes. This combination is rare and valuable, which is exactly why it creates such massive competitive advantage. The question is whether you're brave enough to adopt it. Here's the unsexy truth about accountability that nobody wants to hear. It's not about dramatic transformations, it's about boring daily choices. 2025 research calls it radical consistency. The real secret to sustained success isn't breakthrough moments. It's showing up every single day and doing the work whether you feel like it or not. Motivation is unreliable. Discipline is trainable. The accountable person doesn't wait to feel inspired. They execute their system regardless of emotional state. They show up when it's hard. They deliver when circumstances aren't ideal. They maintain standards when nobody's watching. This is the unsexy foundation that flashy success stories hide. Every overnight success you've ever admired was built on thousands of accountable days you never saw. And here's what separates this from generic discipline advice. Radical accountability means owning not just your actions, but your thoughts, moods, and responses. You stop waiting for circumstances to create your emotional state. You take responsibility for generating it yourself. Bad mood? Your responsibility to shift it. Low energy? Your responsibility to manage it. Difficult situation? Your responsibility to reframe it. This level of ownership is exhausting at first. Then it becomes the most liberating force in your life because nothing external can control you anymore. Everything you've learned in this video comes down to one choice. You can continue outsourcing your results to luck, timing, and circumstances, or you can reclaim complete ownership of your outcomes starting today. The gap between where you are and where you want to be isn't about resources or opportunities. It's about accountability. The willingness to look in the mirror and say, "This is my responsibility." Your competition is making that choice right now. The question is whether you'll match them. Let's go deeper into why accountability is so hard. Your brain is literally wired to avoid it. 2025 neuroscience research identified several cognitive biases that actively work against ownership. Self-serving bias we already covered, but there's also confirmation bias, where your brain selectively notices information that supports your existing beliefs. If you believe the world is against you, your brain will filter reality to prove that story true. There's fundamental attribution error, where you judge others by their actions but yourself by your intentions. You give yourself credit for trying while holding others accountable only for results. And there's cognitive overload. In high-stress situations, your brain's decision-making capacity gets overwhelmed. When that happens, you default to blame because it's cognitively easier than taking responsibility. Understanding these biases doesn't eliminate them, but it gives you a fighting chance to override them consciously. Every time you catch yourself making an excuse, you have a choice. Indulge the bias and stay stuck, or override it and grow. The accountable mind trains itself to catch these patterns in real time and correct them. It's a skill, which means it's trainable, which means you can develop it starting today. Stop relying on luck. Start taking radical ownership of every result in your life. The research is undeniable. Internal locus of control predicts success across every domain. Victim mentality blocks accountability and stunts growth. Self-serving bias protects your ego at the cost of your education. Extreme ownership transforms failures into fuel. You now understand the psychology that keeps most people stuck and the framework that sets elite performers free. The only question left is what you do with this knowledge. Understanding is worthless without implementation. Information doesn't create transformation. Action does. So here's your challenge. For the next 30 days, eliminate external blame from your vocabulary. Every time something goes wrong, ask one question: what could I have done differently? And then implement that change immediately. This simple practice will rewire your brain around accountability faster than any course, coach, or book ever could. You're not average. You never were. Now go prove it.